Okay. And then go to this tab or the browser that has Facebook on it and make sure you click go live on there too. And then once you do that, you should be good to go.
This one? Oh, you can't see, can you?
No, I can't. It's the one that we set up the spring, got the string URL and key from. It should say go live at the bottom left in red.
Whoa. Okay. Then
You
what?
click it.
Yeah.
Facebook is live.
It should be, I guess.
We should be good to go. We're live, so you can go ahead and begin and start the show then.
Oh, I just lost my script you gave me.
It's all right. Take your time. I'll read it for you if you'd like. That'd be easier.
Okay, go ahead. Because I just lost it.
Make sure to check out the Sacred Lee's Visa Facebook page, follow it, and support our Sunday night shows. Also, check out the Just Conspiracy YouTube channel, the Where's Delilah YouTube channel, as well as the News for Us World, News for Us World Fringe Division, and other Facebook pages and channels. All the links are in the description. We are on Rumble, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Telegram. And if you like the work we're doing, you can show your support by purchasing a shirt, cap, mug, or more from our Bonfire store. All the funds go directly to the CPS and Family Court Corruption Victims Funds. All the links are in the description. And for the Bonfire, it's bonfire.com/FU-family-court and bonfire.com/just-TD. Just TD.
All right. So tonight, Desiree is going to tell us her story is it with CPS?
Absolutely.
Okay. And we have Jonathan Cross on tonight from Just Conspiracy and Monarch, and we have Jen tonight's show. So if you want to start, Desiree, with telling your story.
Hi, everybody. So I was attacked by
Desiree.
CPS. Huh?
I said, hi, Desiree.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I was attacked by CPS on January 20th, 2017. And let me just say I did nothing wrong. I didn't get along with the social worker. And my kids were at their nannies, and absolutely nobody was even inside my home. They did not have a warrant. And they barged into my home and argued with me. And I haven't seen my kids in 6 years because of these monsters. And basically, they did nothing but lie in the courts. I have no criminal record. I owned my own home. I have a college degree. We were a happy family. And because my ex called them about a sewage leak and it ended up being cleared, but still I didn't go along with the social worker. And today I still haven't seen my kids because I refuse to do their services is absolutely un-American. And I refuse to allow my kids to grow up in America that does this. And I don't feel safe in my own home. And even if I were to bring them home and comply with all their services, I know they would just attack me again tomorrow. And I don't feel safe. And I want to promise my kids that when they're adults and have children, this won't happen to them. That's my promise. Yeah,
Do you feel that if you would comply to what they're asking you to do, that in some way you would be admitting that they were like right, you were wrong, and that what they have done was okay, and that's why you've taken that stand?
Guilt. So actually, the release of your children is based on your admission of guilt, which is also not American. Yeah, and you have to do it with a smile, because they could still choose at the end of the day to not give you your children, should the social worker tell the judge.
Well, really, I found in my case, because I've chose to not take their 1 hour visits a month, whatever, being supervised, that, you know, that was my only option. And because I haven't done that, there's no seeing my child. But I felt that if I did that, that what they did was okay, that I would be telling them that it was okay, that they could just come in and just rip my daughter from her security, and that some way I was wrong. And I just can't do that because I didn't do anything wrong.
I wouldn't let them remember me like that. I wanted them to remember me as we were happy, you know, strong mom.
And you know what? You're right, Angela, because because I have the same feeling about that as well. I was ordered to do reunification therapy, and I was worried. They need
You're breaking up.
Jen, you're breaking up there. Go back like 10 seconds.
Okay, is that better?
Still a little bit
Okay,
choppy. Try say something.
I'm okay. I'm just
Yeah, you're cutting out, Jen.
Oh, now we can't hear you at all, Jen.
Try adjusting your settings. But go ahead. Continue, Dottie. We'll wait till and we'll resume whatever.
Okay. Can you guys hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yeah, it's still a little bit spotty, but it's legible. It's audible.
Okay. I feel the same way about the reunification therapy that they're trying to get me and my daughters to do, or me and my daughter, and it was daughters at the time. And I thought, well, shoot, we need therapy. So that's something close to what they were trying to get me to do. But it's not court ordered, but I was trying to still work with them. But then I thought, if I do all these things and agree to do things outside of court, then I'm in the wrong. And then if I do follow these things, then it's like I'm admitting that I need these services, and I really don't. So I can.
There's so many wrongs about it because you don't need it, and they know you don't need it.
Right.
And taxpayers should know that you don't need it because it's a waste of money, and it's where all of their social security money's going, and it's absolutely ridiculous.
Right, and it actually they call it reunification therapy here. It destroys families.
Oh, absolutely.
Big time. I mean, and then you also have these therapists that conspire and collude with the abusers to do the narrative as well. So you're thinking, well, yeah, my child has gone through trauma. Okay, yes, we do need therapy, but then you're kind of hoping, but then on another sense, I at least got to see that my daughter's alive, even though she wants absolutely nothing to do with me, and they're waiting it out till she's 14 to say that she doesn't want to see me anymore instead of going the adoption route. So yeah, I know we don't need it. They just need their mother. They need, because we need to heal together because I can heal my children. I know my children. You know your children. Dottie, you know your daughter. We know them like that. We create, we know them. And we need each other to heal. We need our kids back to heal. And even when I did see her on these outside events, there was progress. And whenever they saw progress, they would stop it and say, oh, nope. Because I saw that bond come back naturally with no therapy, with no psychotropics, with no supervised this and unsupervised that, and titty tat and content this and in contempt that, shit. No, we were natural. And as soon as the abuser saw that, boom, my daughter eaten up.
Anyway, my kids were never hurt. There was no injury.
Right.
In the fridge.
There was no imminent, they were hurt after. They're hurt.
Only hurt.
And
yes, correct.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So anyways, I can relate to you guys on both levels. I mean,
it's okay. And across the board, I talked to a lot of other parents. I have a semi-large group too on Facebook, and same story basically across the line. And I don't care if they get accused or even did a couple bad things in their past. The law has said so many times that it doesn't matter. And just so much of, there's more, I could count on my hands what they've done legally. Legally. Like how they operate is bad. Like it's incomprehensible.
Right.
this agency. It's just, you
Hey,
can't.
hey, Jen, can you mute yourself if you're not talking? I think it might be coming on through on your end, the feedback.
Huh?
Go ahead, Desiree, continue.
Oh, it's just the mass amounts of illegalities this AKA government agency does is I've heard the Constitution doesn't apply here. I don't need a warrant. We don't need evidence. I will have them lie if you don't let us in. 7 entries without warrants. 3 cars lost. They stolen, actually. Dodge. I pretty much lost all the equity in my other home because they had code enforcement attack. Mind you, I bought my home in the Sacramento area and it was a foster home repo. And I didn't know any of this when I bought this home. And I had to rip the carpets out because there were fleas on it still, and pee stains on rugs and triple alarms and bolts on doors and sensor lights, and none of it didn't click back then. And that's why I get why it doesn't click for the general population about the just enormous issue that we have. I later found out from a friend, Lance, why there was pee stains on the rugs, but that's a whole nother story and it's sad. But yeah, I just ripped the carpets out. I had a huge pile of just disgusting. Code enforcement let foster kids stay in this home. Okay, they approved it. CPS approved this home, but yet I was flagged and charged for it at the end of the day for those those rooms that he built because he didn't have the proper whatever permits. So, I mean, this has been a full rounded story from the start. My home was a foster home. This used to be Health and Human Services right behind my home. Ridiculous. It's absolutely, these people are sick and they're communists and they come from the capacity building in Washington, D.C. That's where the twist of the words occurs from legislation in Congress into our local CPS branches. They are the ones who train the judges and the social workers across the nation. They provide all their training manuals to the supervisors, everybody, definitions, expectations. So yeah, that's where it comes from. And it took a long time to even figure out that this was administrative court. I didn't even know that. They kept telling me it was civil. So there I go looking at civil law, thinking I could fight it in a civil court, and I was wrong because they lied. How are you supposed to fight something you can't even look at the proper laws for it?
Exactly.
I just covered it was administrative law. So I've been arguing the wrong things this whole time. Of course, the same due process rights aren't occurring because you have legal deference in the court. I mean, it's APA regulating you. Not.
I think it was 2 or 3 years into my custody case before I realized it was administrative law.
Yeah, I mean, nobody told me this. No
Yeah.
lawyers. I had to find it myself. Ridiculous. They lied so much. I mean, and then they just don't follow their own written laws. It's ridiculous. And then enforcement is a huge issue, and thus the police issue, because they too are earning money from all of this collaborative effort of theirs. They don't know how to exist without economical cannibalism. The children, they're ruining everybody. They're destroying it all. I mean, look around, look at California. Yeah, really, look at California. This is what happens. You know, it's sad, but we're gonna fix it.
What do you think about that, Jonathan? Are you there?
Yeah, which part?
About the administrative courts and nobody knowing that it's administrative.
I
I
think
don't know.
your webcam lens is on, John.
I don't know if they hide the fact that it's administrative. I think that they're kind of open about the fact, but people have to know where to look. The thing is that, you know, if you go and look in any constitution, I don't care if it's the state constitution or the federal constitution, it guarantees and secures everybody's right to the rule of law, to due process of law. I've never seen any constitution that says everybody has the right to an administrative proceeding, because as soon as you get into administrative proceeding, you don't have any rights. It's all administrated. And the only way to really get into an administrative proceeding is for all of the parties to consent and to agree. But Monarch talks about it a lot, and there's really not any consenting, because before you even get the process started, they've already got all of the leverage. They already have your children, you know, so it's like, oh, what would a parent not do for their child? You know, like I understand what everybody's saying, and I agree with you about you shouldn't have to take a parenting course, you shouldn't have to go through reunification therapy, you shouldn't have to jump through all of these hoops that they make you jump through. It's like, you have to go to reunification therapy. Why? Because they took your kids in the first place. You know, it's not like y'all did something within the family
I need
that,
a modification is why they said.
for what?
My attitude.
I didn't get that.
We didn't hear you. Say that again.
I need a behavioral changes because they didn't like my attitude. It's actually written, they wanted my behavior to be adjusted.
Yeah, I mean, they want you to obey them. You know,
Right,
they-
well, it said in my paperwork was because I wouldn't follow court orders that I didn't obey, basically, same difference.
yeah,
Capacity building actually says this. I'll find it for you.
I was told that I didn't benefit from services, even though I completed every single service that was ordered and then some.
When they do you after you do everything they say,
Yeah,
unacceptable.
did not benefit. I'm like, well, yeah, you give me my children and I will benefit from your services. You'll never see me again and I will not be around here. I will be out of Dodge. Stay lovey.
What were you saying, Jonathan?
Parents must be held accountable for maintaining expectations of compliance with case plans and court orders, while at the same time be treated with dignity, understanding, and fairness. Ten of their suggested principles.
and it's all suggestive and it's all discretionary. See, there's nothing discretionary about law. You know, like the equal protection of the law and the equal application of the law determines that basically the law should apply to everybody fairly, and we don't live in that society.
Now, the way I do plan on helping us end the whole thing well, is because there has been an argument of it being a non-delegable power. And they've been arguing about that, and that is true. Congress themselves don't have the power to take your kids. I mean, that is God-given children. Even the law says this, not government-given children. So therefore, they're not able to take your kids, let alone delegate the power to an agency. So that is how we're going to end it.
That's been my argument quite a few times with the courts.
Non-delegatable power because themselves don't have the power to take your kids. So, easy. Boom. So now just to get everybody to like agree. Right?
So how did the courts get this power? That's,
Hmm?
you know, that's a better, the question becomes, how did they get this power? How have we allowed this to get here?
Correct. And that's where my theory of communism comes in, because at the capacity building, they have these keywords within these books and whatnot, words that would parallel to the Nazi attack and to the words that they use, and the structure itself not having any substance. It's very fluid in definition. Like you can interpret it in two different ways, such as the risk of being harmed. We all assume a child at risk of getting hurt. No, they mean risk of entering foster or being poor. And they've said that being poor is not a crime.
But they treat it like it is sometimes.
They've said it. The LA supervisor, I got her to say it during a Los Angeles Times conference. She actually did admit that it was at risk of being poor.
So you think that a lot of these kids are being taken because they're labeling parents as poor, and that what they feel that their system can raise them better?
I think it's even more than that. They agreed with welfare by accepting these funds. In their minds, they have accepted a contract that if they receive government money, their family is therefore overseen by the government and also dictated by the government and their studies and their children because they're receiving funds or whatever. I do believe that's why they think it's okay. Such as like NIH and Fauci and them, they're sick. They're just sick. It's not implied consent if they don't know. But besides that, yeah, I think that's why they attack the welfare. in
No, I
general.
think it could be implied consent, even if you don't know, as far as they're concerned.
No, I know.
I mean, honestly, it's kind of like this. There shouldn't be any such thing as implied consent.
Yeah.
True law is expressed, not implied.
Right. And plus perception is itself is always going to be different for each people. So
You know, I mean, I couldn't go to a car dealership and say, hey, we had an implied warranty, didn't we?
I love it. Love it, right? Right. Well, I want to get the contract for the capacity building with the HHS because there should be a written contract between the two. Capacity building is not a government agency. They are a nonprofit. I want to see the contract, and if it's implied, we should imply our own contract within that and start training them ourselves until they do, you know, cut the power completely. Agreed?
I think family court needs to be abolished altogether,
And it will happen that way.
and CPS.
Hashtag NCPS.
Well, I mean, if the family court's abolished, then CPS will be abolished. You
Oh,
know,
you
I
want-
mean, there are certain areas of society that the government doesn't have any business getting into the middle of, and family's one of them. You know, there's no way to take a child from their parents at common law. The only way to take a child from their parents at common law is for everybody in the neighborhood to get together, go over to the house and say, hey, we see you beating the crap out of your kid and we're not going to let you do it anymore. And then the entire neighborhood would take care of them, because it's kind of like that saying, it takes a village to raise a child, or it takes a tribe to raise a child.
It takes that same one to protect it.
Mommy and dad stuff.
It does.
Yeah. And, you know, that's what I think people should be doing more is when you see CPS showing up at your neighbor's door, instead of ignoring it, people need to start standing up and telling these people, we're not letting you take our community anymore. You know,
we form a third
standing
party.
by, like it would help because, you know, you can rally around a parent or a mother after the fact, but it's before the fact that we need to like get
Absolutely.
control of it
People
before it
were-
actually happens.
They wouldn't be doing this if they were all getting video cameraed and posted live while they're seizing children from mothers crying hands, you know, they wouldn't be doing this.
Well, to get my daughter, they had to put me in jail. I mean, that's how far they went to be able to take her, because they couldn't take her with me there. I just wasn't giving them permission. I wasn't allowing them to take my daughter from me. So they, you know, they had to lock me up, but because that still didn't work, they locked her up until where we had no control of what the next step, what anything was. We still aren't in control of anything.
They locked her up.
You know, how do you stop them before it gets like that?
I'm so sorry they did that. Poor thing. They're
Yeah.
so, you know, the books, the welfare institutions, books themselves are sick, just like that to read. I mean, they talk about it's okay to drug a kid because sometimes you have to get them to comply, or it's okay to force restraints, but yet they'll seize a kid for the same or lesser restraints or force. I mean, they're just sick people that anybody who reads or knows what's going on is sick. I mean, you can't do that and be a human. It's just,
Jonathan, is there any way legally to like battle this kind of
Yeah.
stuff that's happening on, you know, like what can parents do legally to like stop this?
At this point, it's past the legal issue.
right.
You know, like this is where, like, when legal, In the Constitution, where they talk about freeing all of the slaves, they say nobody shall be slavery and involuntary servitude is abolished except for somebody who's duly convicted of a crime. Now, duly convicted means that you're convicted legally and lawfully. A lot of people talk about how illegal these things are, and I hate to tell everybody, but all of it's 100% legal, because all legal means is that people got together, wrote it down, and established it in some type of court that they created. That's all legal means. The big thing, the most important thing is it lawful?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And it's at such a level that the illegalities within their own courts and court system, if somebody even wants to go against the narrative, they are attacked. Like they have court watchers. I discovered not too long ago to watch the parent's attorney to make sure they're complying and just mitigating the services that are rendered, because they don't, they'll get removed. They have court watchers watching the parents' lawyers to comply.
And that's how bad it's gotten.
Yeah, that's how
Yeah.
bad it is.
You know, they're even watching the people who are supposed to participate and prop up their own system.
Right. So now we already tried also to defund them with Title IV, but unfortunately not enough people participated in the review, because I submitted a review to reopen the Title IV approval, and they did it for me through the OMB, I think it was. They reopened it for 30 days and nobody freaking called them, responded, or anything to the review and response of them. Like nobody knows where to go and everybody's hearing different information. So it's too confusing. And that's exactly what they planned to do to everybody, to make it this confusing. Even just their name doesn't have one name, if you know what I mean. It's like 20 different CPSs out there. It's ridiculous. So for anybody to figure it out is quite difficult. But yeah, nobody called them to stop the funding. But me, of course. So, but yeah, nobody pays attention to the actual laws that are being passed or the because they do go open and they go on public website for review and response. And yeah, nobody ever looks at it. Nobody reads anything.
I mean, that's another pretty big problem right there is what you're talking about. It's like we have one of the most open governments in the history of mankind, and for the most part people just don't look. You know, like people would find a lot of atrocities if they just paid attention, but everybody's too busy trapped inside their cell known as a phone.
You know, we should be able to sleep. We should be comfortable and be able to trust our government as they should trust us. And
No, you should never trust government. I mean, the entire idea of government is to not trust it. As soon as you start trusting government, things like this happen every single time. This isn't unique to history.
True power can't corrupt, because true power understands what it causes and that will harm them. So this falsity of power corrupting is wrong.
So JC, I've got a little question about the, you know, like had enough people participated on the Title IV thing, like would that actually defunded them, or it's just
No.
something for show like Title 42 cases?
No, unfortunately, in their own written books, they actually have a backup plan should that occur, and that is to go ahead and progress with the ongoing funding for 1 year of kind of like a probationary period in which they have the time to fix whatever issue. I know they give themselves so many contingency and backup plans. It's already in there. It's gotten that. But yeah, it would have helped. Would have put them on point at least, you know? Yeah.
Interesting. If we can do that to every government agency that bothers people.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Then they might call you a paper terrorist or a sovereign citizen.
Yeah.
Hi, kids. It's Monarch here. Sorry I didn't step in earlier.
I just heard that term.
Well, and also the truth is, if we had enough people that were aware and communicated these things and supported each other, we probably wouldn't even need to go to that level. Because if you had this many people aware and on board, we probably wouldn't be in this spot in the first place.
Right. Because people don't feel like they have support to do the right thing. They don't. They truly don't. If you follow the whistleblower phone numbers or websites, they get you nowhere also. So even the whistleblowers don't have a safe outlet yet.
Well, I'd like to just say, just look at all the whistleblower protection acts that are being violated right now. Look at Project Veritas. There's a perfect example right there of what you're talking about.
Exactly. Exactly.
Or any one of the 100 and something that were going to testify against Hillary Clinton and decided to shoot themselves in the back of the head a few times.
Right. It was an accidental death. Of course, it was an accident. Oh no! Oh wait, no, it was a suicide.
Right.
2 shots to the back of the head, different calibers. But that was suicide.
One of them had, I think, 2 or 3 suicide notes in different handwriting.
Well, that didn't. Well, how could that happen? Well, maybe he wrote a fake suicide note, and then he did the real one in his own handwriting, and then yeah, that's what the MSM sounds like right now.
Or it just got forged, and they weren't sure what was going on, and so like Hillary wrote one for one of
We
them.
don't know what happened. We just found them dead. We don't know how they died. We just found them dead. We think they killed themselves. Like, come on. It's not, I mean, like, it's pretty obvious when shit don't add up and something's going on there. And it's pretty like transparent, the MSM's propaganda at this point. What would you guys say to that?
I don't even have that many friends, like for the amount that people have committed suicide that has known Hillary. I don't even think I even have like 50 something friends. So, wow.
I know, but like, what would you guys say? Would you guys say that the MSM's lies at this point are pretty transparent to the masses, to the vast majority of people?
Yeah.
What is your guys' take on that, all y'all?
Well, you would hope so, that many people can see.
Right.
A better question is how many people that aren't on this call, would think so.
Right,
That's the
right.
question, yeah.
I just want to get your guys' take on it, though. I mean, I've seen like over the last 6 to 9 months, like shit really like. I mean, I've seen the MSN completely just bury themselves in a lot of regards. Like, I mean, let's look at the numbers of CNN where they were a year and a half ago to compare to like 6 months ago. Just straight downhill. But I think that's more symptomatic of people seeing through the bullshit and not buying it anymore and being lied to and waking up to that. I mean, in my opinion. But what do you think about that, John? What is your take on
that? I think they have everybody so isolated and feeling alone. It doesn't matter if you're on the far right, far left, independent, moderate right, moderate left. They have everybody so divided and kind of sectioned off and feeling alone that that's really hard. It's hard to gauge. Like, I don't know if I can trust anything except for the things I see with my eyes and experience with my senses, because I don't know what good it would do to speculate about it, because in my opinion, the only people who really might have a good clue would be the NSA. We're living in a world, in an environment where, it's like everything is just a feedback from a computer screen. How many likes you have, how many friends you have, what the comments are. We're not actually talking to those people in real life. And I think that that's a really, really big problem. But besides it being a really, really big problem, I think it's very difficult to gauge what's actually going on, how many people there are. I think there are a lot more people out there fighting for freedom than anybody realizes.
I agree with you on that last statement for sure. Question is, what do you do? Like, how do you gauge where we're at progress wise as far as being woken up, like regarding the masses, when you have a media that all they do is lie, and that's all you're seeing. You're not getting any real honest numbers or even info from from those outlets at all. So it's like it kind of gets really hard to kind of gauge where we're at. I think.
Well, I'll tell you what. Here's my theory on trust. My theory is you can't trust anybody. You can trust people to be who they are. And everybody knows that the media lies. So
Yep.
people are losing their trust in the media. And of course, the media is all like, well, you got to trust us because those other people on the internet, they haven't been accredited. They haven't been state sanctioned. Anybody can say what they want on YouTube. And I think as time goes on, as people wake up, more or less, I think that people are going to drift to where they feel natural.
I agree with you on that completely. It's funny because and the episode of Tips, Techniques, and Survival Traits, episode 15, I did, I covered I don't know if you heard last month, the NBCP briefing documents that were released regarding the whole Ukraine issue. But long story short, I covered that on episode 15. They wouldn't even let me keep my promo. YouTube red flagged my promo for medical misinformation, which is a whole total crock of shit, if you ask me. But yeah, I mean, who made them arbiter of truth regarding medical information? Like, come on, really? You don't do that. You don't censor people on those kind of fronts unless you have something to hide.
The attorney general, I think, did. They said they were going to put out warnings about false medical misinformation being spread. They were working directly with Facebook. I know that one specifically.
Yeah, no, I covered that. Like, there was in episode 2, there was a direct link to that on one of my episode 2 of Tips, Techniques, because it was it was March, like I think it was like March 2021 when they had the meeting with all the Congress and all that shit, and they basically told them, all right, either you're going to cooperate or you're not going to have a business, more or less. It's basically what they did. Is that what you're talking about? That meeting? I think it was
it was with the White House press secretary, the redheaded one.
Oh yeah, Psaki. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Circle back Psaki.
Yeah. Circle jerk Psaki. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Anyways, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's like they are the governing body and they have declared themselves the experts on all things. And unless there's an equally powerful entity willing to challenge that, or no participants in the body they're meaning to govern, so we could either create an equally powerful government and rival them, which sounds not too plausible, or we can, by the masses, leave their jurisdiction, stop participating,
And I think that's going to be ultimately our solution with the latter one that you just said about stop participation altogether, like kind of like a boycott, but on a grander scale.
Exactly. And really the only, I think, fundamental obstacle to that is people don't want to give up the perceived benefit. They don't want to give up the chance to have a license and be told how they can drive, or
that's the key word you mentioned there is perceived benefit, because it really is just a perceived benefit. And if you look at it truthfully and and objectively, you'll see that we're not really the beneficiaries of it at all. The motherfuckers that are running the show are the ones that are lining their pockets at our expense.
Well, it is a benefit. It's just not a benefit that is a positive to your life because you didn't read the papers,
Right. That's what I was kind of getting at. But go ahead.
Well, yeah, that's about it, really. But the thing that ultimately holds people up from disengaging, even when they feel in their heart and they know better, is because they feel, oh yeah, but I got to go get that benefit. I got to pick up that perk or take advantage of that program, and
Social Security.
I mean, that's a tough thing.
It is, and it's all part of the conditioning too. I think that's part of the process, or part of the mind control that they got us stuck in. Like with the Social Security, for example, I get a check, I got this coming in. Why jeopardize that? Yada yada yada. Does that make sense? Like from that perspective, what you're saying, because I totally see that.
You've been paying to it, like since you're what, 21, and now you're 54. So what's the likelihood of a guy who did that to kind of give away all that money just to fight CVS?
Right.
Just, are you guys there?
We're here. We're
Oh,
are
okay.
you okay?
I thought
Yeah,
something happened.
we thought you were going to say something. You were
Oh
about
no,
to say
I thought
something.
something happened.
Oh
No.
no, we're all here. You're just lighting up a cigarette. That's probably what it picked up on. Go ahead.
Well, they do that. They make people try to make people feel as if they're comfortable with what they're giving them, and where they stay complacent. You know, that is part of something that they do to people with these checks. And just like, look at all the stuff they did when they did the COVID, all the money they kept giving out, or to take the shot, you know. People shouldn't depend on the government. I was talking, I think, with Jonathan the other day about being self-independent, like being able to take care of ourselves. You know, our ancestors used to be able to do that, you know, like provide food for themselves, clothing. And then I think Jonathan said that the jacket was hard to make or something.
Yeah, I mean, throughout all of society, you've always had people specialize in certain things, you know, so that they could get really good at it. And
But it was
and
in the community, you know, it
Yeah.
wasn't like Walmart, you know, some corporation that, I mean, you kind of would know the people by name.
well, I mean, maybe like I'm sure that everybody who lived in Boston during the time of the Revolution didn't know each other by name.
No, but they had their local tailor that they did, and everybody in the community or that neighborhood or area or whatever probably knew that tailor,
For sure.
you know, because there, you know, there's no sense of neighborhoods anymore within the community from what I, you know, what I remember as a child till now.
Well, I mean, I think one of the problems is
Hey,
we,
Desiree, could you mute yourself? We're getting feedback here. Just for a sec.
What did you need me to mute?
Yeah, because we're getting audio feedback, I think, from you.
Yeah, probably. My phone's acting up.
Yeah, just mute until you speak. That's all. Thank you.
yeah, I mean, we have a problem in our society that really doesn't look like a problem, and that is that we have very abundant resources. You know, throughout most of history, everybody has had to really struggle. Communities have had to really struggle just to get along and do the day by day in life. And for the past, you know, since World War II, we've had an overabundance of resources, and now we're overproducing things that we don't even need, things that you know, like I was talking to a car mechanic the other day and replacing a alternator, and he was talking about how back in the 80s they would always rebuild the alternator. They would never replace one just because it took so much to manufacture it. And now our manufacturing capabilities are such to where it really just doesn't matter. And the reason I say that that's a problem is because it allows the government to take people out of society without it actually hurting or affecting society. You know, the whole idea of the right to a fast and speedy trial is so that if the baker gets arrested in the town, you're not going to be without bread that long, you know, unless he gets hung. Unless he did something really wrong, and then other people are going to learn to bake bread. But it's like back in the old days, at the turn of the 19th century, you couldn't be away from society. Like, society wouldn't really work that well. This is why every felony was punishable by death, is because if you're not producing for society, if you're not pulling your own weight, if you're taking and stealing from other people, then we don't have the resources to keep you alive in the wilderness just to do harmful things to us. So I think there's a big issue with that. And because we have this overabundance of resources, the government has really just made up whatever they want to make up. I mean, I would almost say crimes. They have a lot of made up crimes, but what we're talking about with family court, it's not criminal at all. You know, a made up crime would be having, possessing, or selling marijuana. That's a made up crime. What's going on in the family court, it's like people who use drugs and shoot heroin, they have more rights than parents who have their children taken away. In my opinion, I don't think anybody should have their children taken away without being convicted of a crime.
I agree. 100%, I agree with that. But, you know, it shouldn't be where parents walk into family court and come out with criminal charges either. You know, like what's happening to me, that's ridiculous. Why we should, I went into family court, and now that I've gone in through family court, there's a possibility that I'm gonna end up a felon on the other end without my child. It doesn't make sense that they can give you, you know, put these charges against you for nothing. You know, nobody should have to have that worry about going into the family court. And because it's happening more and more to parents, you know, than it ever has been, where people are getting criminal charges, criminal contempt charges, whatever, or they're arresting parents for not forcing their children to go to the abuser or the, you know, the other parent. Why, that you should never be arrested for that. That is, I don't even know what that is. It's just crazy.
It's communism. It's exactly communism.
Well, it sure isn't free will.
I mean, I think that's the most scary part about the whole thing is that, you know, I've been doing this for a really long time. And until that man got arrested for asking if he was a slave, I would say family courts were basically the easiest one to walk people through.
And would you say that today?
Well, today is so insane. I don't even know what they're going to do, but basically, I'm not really in a spot where I'm really willing to work with somebody unless they're going in front of a jury.
So basically, you don't want to even mess with family court.
Well, I don't want to mess with any of it because they're so far gone, there's no telling what they're going to do. You know, like everybody in that courthouse believes in the system to a very, very dangerous level, huh?
So you can't, there's no remedy to it? Like what's the, you know, what's the remedy? Your child gets taken, they say all this bad things about you, it's all perjury, you know, hearsay, and there's no remedy?
Well, that's not really remedy at all. You know, but right now the scary thing is that there's not remedy.
Especially not in the court, the family court. You know, it's about as administrative as it gets.
So you're just left with whatever they hand you, huh?
Well, you're not going to get something different from them, I should say. You know, if you're going to go that route, you have to try and take them on with a different kind of attack. You know, you can't beat them at their game in their court with their ball that they're throwing at you. You know,
Absolutely correct.
You'd have to bring them to your court, you know, with your ball in law, and that's the tricky part, is if you can find it.
Well, I mean, there is no law anymore.
Right.
You know, it's like I have never ever seen the law get upheld. Okay, I have seen them not violate the law for years. It's like I've never seen anything where somebody went in with an action against somebody and they actually won. I've even seen and helped somebody with an action where their boss stole money from them, you know, $500 the day after Christmas. And they went and filed an action in law, and the judicial officer yelled at them, told them they were doing everything wrong. And it's like, that's the guy who stole $500, you know, the day after Christmas, because I gave him 2 weeks notice beforehand that I was going to leave and go to a different job the next year. And that's where it's gotten. It's gotten to the point where it's so bad that the system itself is protecting the wrongdoers. The system itself is perpetuating the harm, and not just from the government. Like, we can all think about, okay, they're protecting the cops because cops are part of the government. They're protecting the lawyers because they work in the system. They're protecting the school teachers because they work for the county. But it's like, you have a private contractor over here who stole $500 from a family that lives paycheck to paycheck. And you're going to help the guy who stole $500? Really?
So should we be criminals so we might see the law upheld then?
Well, it's like with family courts, and whether it's the adversarial party is your ex-husband or wife, whatever the case, or if the other side is CPS, just generally speaking, if you were to ask any man in this country who the courts favor and a family court, without a skip of a beat, they would say they favor the women every time. But I say this, they do, yes, unless the default is the man is such a, blatant wrongdoer. I mean, if he's just egregiously wrong in many ways, or the obvious ways, then the court will have his back,
Yeah.
And it's like all of a sudden the mom is just like, without question, doing everything she can to be there for the kid, do everything, then the court takes the man's side, because the mom's going to keep coming back for her kid, and they need that drawn out repeat business, or ongoing business, I should say.
Whoever tattles first.
Yeah, that's unfortunately how they structure it, and people have just relied on being litigious, in this society for so long. It's I'm telling teacher, and that became like the cool kids thing to do or something.
Yeah, I think this is not new. I believe the only part of this that is new is the technology and as all communicating with each other about it happening across the board. And now things are going to change because we can see it now. Everybody can see it now, and it has to change. They're the ones who are going to have to change because of it. So I think that would be the only new part, because history has not been better. It was worse back then. We are getting better. And they're just having to adjust to actually following the law now. And they're not liking it, my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, and their existence is to govern, is to control. That's the purpose of every part of their mission and existence. People in our society, individually and collectively, need to do the changing first, so they don't have room to govern. If you can govern yourselves accordingly, without need of calling somebody for everything, then they won't have anything to govern. You have 300 something million independent and self-governing people. They have no place anymore. But that's obviously not going to happen, not anytime soon. But we need to get it out first person to everybody we know, everything, all our information, everything that we've observed and been through.
I agree. So people know, so it can stop. I think people can govern themselves a lot more than what they think, because they've made the society believe that they can't, that we need our government, that we can't do anything without them. But that's just not the case.
Right. Yeah. And walking a high wire line with a safety net, they often fall, but when they don't have a safety net, they always do better, and it's like, anytime you have that fall back, or that perception in your mind that something's going to take care of me, you never put forth your best.
Right. You won't take the risk.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, if you have something supplemental to do your job for you, or part of your job for you, then you never quite grow into it. It's kind of like sink or swim, I guess. It's like, you're not going to learn to swim unless you're in the water. If you're on a floaty your whole life, You don't even know what swimming is.
And
Then
that's,
that floaty starts taking your kids and stuff. So
and then you don't know how to stop it. Right? Like,
exactly. You think I must have made the floaty upset. The floaty takes care of me. I better do what the floaty says. And then the floaty doesn't hold its side of the argument and you still have your kids gone, you know?
and then that leaves you with what? No answers, no, nothing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that just leaves people even more confused. And in that particular example, when it comes to taking your family, you know, you're so destroyed. Every party was destroyed, and your family, every part of them is destroyed. So you just become,
Well, like you said before, it starts messing with your bloodline.
yeah, they eliminate your entire bloodline. They break up the whole damn party, you know?
Right,
then
because
it's,
kids go without even knowing who they are. A lot of times what they make them change their names and stuff,
yeah,
and they
yeah.
have no clue their history or their who their ancestors are.
Yeah.
That's
And
got to make some confusion in the world as a whole.
yeah. And you know, even to go out, expound on that, in my particular case, the not not a woman that was in charge. She even made two of my kids change their first name. You know, and that's
Wow.
like, it doesn't matter what age you are, if you know what your name is, how insulting is that to you? Because like last name, you're pretty young, you can understand that, like that means, you know, it's my dad's last name, my mom's last name, you know, you kind of learn how that works a little bit.
But you
But your
identify.
first name,
People
but your first name is
identify
like,
with their names.
yeah, and but like your first name is just, it's like, well, what did I do wrong? I got to change my name, but that's my name, you know? And it's like,
Right.
it's insulting. It's kind of like, I don't like the way you look, change that, you know? It's, there's no rationale for changing somebody's first name, you know?
Unless you want to, you have something to hide, basically.
Yeah, if you're trying to stay hidden or, you know, disconnect from what that name is known to be, that's one thing. But to tell somebody they have to change their first name, there's no excuse for that.
Well, unless they want to hide them in what's happening to
Yeah. Oh yeah, they, of course, they,
yeah, that's what I'm
I know
saying.
the reasoning, but like,
Right.
what do you tell the
So
kid
they
that
can
you're,
traffic them. That they're easier when they don't have birth certificates and things of that nature, or know where they come from.
yeah,
You know,
Well, it's all about taking their identity away from them,
yeah,
you know, taking their independence, taking their freedom. You can't do that with people who know who they are.
right? Can't control them as much either, I would think.
yeah, that's just horrifying, you know, because it's like there's so many characteristics and so many inherent traits that people get from their lineage, from their parents, or mom and dad, I should say. And it's like, to not, if you were young enough and you were removed from that, and to not know the source of who you are or what you are, that's got to be such a void inside, you know?
Well, they've kind of done that to all of humanity, really.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
then they start filling the void for you with bullshit. They start telling them, oh, your dad didn't get his fucking homework done, so he couldn't come back and get you. He must have loved something else more than you, you know? And they tell them that shit. I mean, it's like in their script.
you just gotta wonder what kind of person does that. Like, these people that work for CPS, it takes a certain type of person to be able to do that, because if you got to know what you're doing. Like, they
Yeah,
can't.
and you know, I can answer that question, what kind of person it is, because this was the foster persons, right? The adopting persons. And I could tell you what that kind of person that is. They were from the system and they're just perpetuating it more, you know? It's exactly the outcome that they were looking for. We take them out of their realm, their world, their everything, throw them in a world that's going to raise them to a complying narrative, and they're so lost, they don't know anything about their origins, they don't get the upbringing that they require, they get the upbringing that they're given, you know, and they just do it again. They become it's like, you know,
Dissociation, like get them to dissociate and you can mold them to whatever.
yeah. And even worse than that, they resent their past. They resent their birth parents.
Oh, and then
You know?
feed them with a little bit of hatred, you know, a little
Yep.
dash of hatred.
We all know what happens with that kind of tactics. You get Darth Vader, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what their plan is hoping to, you know, like come out with in a positive way. I mean, how can you get anything but a bunch of Darth Vaders or just total chaos? There's nothing positive or even manageable that could come with that outcome, you know?
So what's your opinion on resolving this? Like, how do we stop it?
Well, if I tell you my true opinion, it'll be the ATF and the NSA that kick my door in.
Right.
So that might answer it for you.
Yeah. It's really frustrating when there's no way like legally to take care of anything. Like there's nothing I can do legally to be able to see my daughter at this point. That's how I feel, you know, like what can I do? They don't give you an option.
Well, let me give you a parallel legal / lawful example. If you own property or are on property that you believe to be yours or you have the right to, and you somehow get evicted by somebody else that fraudulently claims to own that property, and you physically leave that property before ever having it ruled into your, you know, favor, they'll just throw the whole thing out, rule against you, because it's all moot at that point. If you physically leave the property, it's like you forfeit the game and there's no getting back in. So my point being, if they have physical as well as you know, legal custody, the physical custody is the hardest part. You know, obviously it's kind of the most important part. So basically, once they have physical custody, that's where the impossibilities start coming in. So, you know, I hate to state the obvious, but it needs to be stated. And that is, don't let anybody ever take your offspring.
Right.
Ever. I don't care what color costume they're wearing, what kind of paper they have in their hand. Don't fucking let it happen.
Yeah. They'll fight you too. Like that's what they had to do, put me in jail to get my kid. But what does moot exactly mean when they say something's moot? Because that they came back with that as the outcome on the, what was it, the habeas corpus that was filed against me. I believe it was the habeas.
They're basically saying it's not an issue anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'd just like to touch on something real quick, Dottie. Kind of going back to you asking about, you know, what is the solution? And I'll tell you this, I got an idea. I know how things have worked in the past. But one thing I think everybody knows, everybody sees, at least anybody who's looking, obviously they have a plan for 2030 where you'll learn nothing and be happy, however that works. And so in my mind, it basically works like this. Either it's going to turn 2030 and that will be true, or people are going to turn it around.
I see it inspiring the 2030 because right now I have nothing and I'm not happy. So at least then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
They're going to try to cheer me up about having nothing.
They're going to give you Soma.
Wonder what their incentive would be.
If they came to me today and said, you'll own nothing and be happy, I'll be like, oh shit, you're going to cheer me up? What are you going to do for me, man? You got a story? Let me hear it.
That's funny. Well, I don't know if the people are going to be able to get it together to turn it around before 2030. I mean,
Yeah.
they put a fear in a lot of people, you know? And so a lot of people are just scared to do anything. To
And
even
well,
like stop them
and-
from taking their own kids. People are scared of stopping them from taking their kids. That's ridiculous.
yeah, and it's like this ingrained from so young delusion really is what it is, and that is there's no way something as big as the government or the state, would, fuck this up, right? Like they wouldn't take my kids and then just not give them back,
Yes,
you
they
know,
would.
and they fucking absolutely plan on it and they're doing it, In fact, you show up to that court and you think, especially because you probably don't know shit at that time. You don't know what's going on about anything. Maybe you haven't been to court for issues in the past, but you show up to that court and your mind is just like, there's no way they're going to take the kids of an American in America in broad daylight.
It's like a sucker punch. That's
Yeah,
what they do. They sucker punch you.
It is. It really is. You're in this like denial haze of like, okay, it can't be that bad. There's no way they're going to keep my kids. That's not possible. I didn't hurt anybody. I didn't do anything. I didn't even get arrested, and then 3 years later, 4 years later, you got no kids still.
Still, yeah, still.
So it's like, don't let them take your kids. And now I say that not to incite anything hostile. I say, just be 100% aware that they are going to take them. And when they do, they are not going to give them back. So if you got a plan, if you got a plot, if you got a scheme, you got to make some plans and some ideas and, safeguards right now today, do it. Do whatever you got to do to set up and make sure that they don't get your kids. Maybe your kids aren't home ever when they show up.
Yeah,
Maybe, it is what it is. Just don't let them take your kids because they
I
won't come
felt
back.
my biggest mistakes was taking my daughter into the courthouse that day they took her. Like I should have never taken her there. Like why? Like they had gotten my permission basically. What was it that they had me agree to? Whatever, where you agree with them,
Well,
like
yeah, you don't
can't-
see it as a negative trait in you though, because you were the one being in honor. You were the one going in with good faith. They were the ones that did not have good faith and honor, that were going off implied and not express consent, doing things like that. And that's the kind of cowardice tactics that only a wrongdoer uses. So they took advantage of you being in honor and having integrity.
Oh, a consent order because they got my consent, right? So that's where they tricked me, and that was, I should have never done that or taken her into that courthouse.
Right. And see a big reasoning for this mentality with the people versus the state is we don't want to accept the truth that they are not operating in honor. They are not operating with morals or ethics. They are at war with you. You just don't know it yet. Once you know that you're in war, at war with something or someone, your mentality has to change on how you interact with them. It doesn't mean attack and do this and do this and do this. It just means know that they are not going to honor and they are not going to behave the same towards you that maybe you would towards them with integrity and honor. You say something, it's your word, it's your bond. They say something, it's not the same thing,
No, not at all. Most of the time they're lying, and
Right.
So
And
that's usually what I bank on, that it's a lie, whatever they're telling me.
and like I'd say here's a slightly more positive kind of way to look at it, I think, especially pertaining to the 2030 thing. And that is society, largely speaking, if you haven't had your kids taken, yet, if you haven't been completely robbed yet, society at large, is not on a deadline for an outcome the way they are. They have a 2030 clock counting down. And like John said, if they get there, they get there. If they don't, though, it's not necessarily because they were overthrown or something. They just need enough people to not put up with their shit, or enough people even just to make it so fucking much of a pain in their ass that they can't get away with it.
Or just that many people not hiring a lawyer. That's all it would take. Just
Yeah.
stop hiring lawyers.
Yeah. I mean,
got half the system beat.
and it's like, you know, if the cops come to your house, I'm not saying get in a fucking shootout with them, but make it such a inconvenience that they don't have time to go to someone else's house that day, you know?
Well, and
Or,
their
you know, they
paperwork
don't.
isn't always legal either. Like when
Right.
they came to my house to take my daughter because we were not going along with them, they come back that it wasn't even lawful paperwork. He couldn't even be there on the paperwork. So just because they show up with paperwork doesn't mean they have the right to be there taking
Yeah.
anything.
And to emphasize that, they did it twice to me and had no paperwork. So it, you know, for people that hear this and may think, well,
That's
maybe that
kidnapping.
was exactly, maybe that was an extreme example with, you know, Ange or something. No, it's every example.
Yeah.
You know, it's every example. When they show up, if they show up to your place, I promise you right now, they probably won't have shit in their hand because they expect you to just comply. And also another thing is about the whole tactics, them having any integrity or honor and how they don't. When they took mine, they came under the, you know, under the guise of being there for me. And that's a little more common than if they were there for someone else. But because they know that as the head of the household, as the dad, as the man, I'm going to do everything within my physical and intellectual power to stop that. So what they do is they come for me knowing I'm going to isolate myself from those I love in order to, you know, direct the problems. And so they take me down and then they call in the ones to come in for the family. So they don't just show up and say, hi, we're here with, you know, to take your kids, please. And we don't have paperwork. You just have to know that I guarantee you, when they show up, they're not going to be 100% legal or lawful. You know, they're just relying on you. They're lazy. They do it so much that they don't even know the steps.
Right.
You know, like I told you that with the first petition they filed in my case, after the removal, they had the kids, you know, one of the kids wasn't even one of my kids. It was just some other kid that they forgot to cut and paste from the form before they put the whole damn packet in. So I'm like, I don't even know this kid. I've never seen that name in my life. But that shows how frequently they do this shit and people just go with it. Is they can accidentally leave a whole different kid in that petition and neither,
nobody
you know,
say anything.
right. And if I hadn't read it and looked through it the way obviously you should, and I had missed it and just thought, oh, this is a bunch of stuff I don't know. The other side, you know, CPS and the attorney ad litem and all them, as well as the magistrate or referee, as well as the parents at that point, would have all just gone along with the plan, assuming that this kid must be one of mine because they forgot to remove it from
Then it's
the
a missing.
report.
It could be just a lost kid that quick in the system being trafficked. Nobody to be the wiser.
Exactly. I mean, I might, and you know, I didn't really think of this, but an interesting point is literally the very next day after my very first hearing, I get a letter from what is it? Child support services. They want me to start paying the terrorists for taking the hostages. They want me to start paying.
Yeah.
And then the next day after that, I got a bill from the, you know, the pretender that they had assigned to me. But my point is, what if I had to start paying child support on a kid that didn't even exist or was sitting at home with this family or in the system somewhere that, you know?
And then, you know, then it's, if it goes through that way, it's that way, unless you're going to go all the way back to court, fight it. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be just, hey, you made this mistake.
Yeah. I mean,
You would have
like,
to really go back through the role of it all, like to go back into court. Oh, they would love that just to make money. I'm sure that was probably done
Oh
on
yeah.
purpose.
They would be like bonus round, you know?
Right. They did that on purpose.
Yeah, right. Oh, let's see him, we'll get jurisdiction now because he's going to contend that kid even exists,
Right. Exactly. See, they know what they're doing.
Yep. And then think of how kind of weird and difficult it might be to argue later if you had missed it and you're like, wait a minute, I don't know this name. And they're like, okay, you're saying that's not your kid, right? Then why didn't you mention it in the beginning?
Right.
Because like, honestly, you can't really expect the other side is so damn busy taking so many kids that it makes sense they would miss it. And you can't really expect the referee or magistrate to catch it. He doesn't know.
But it also shows you how cookie cutter it
Yeah,
is.
that's
They're
the
just
point.
doing it to take kids. Like it's,
Right.
just
And
one name for another.
you want to think that if I had wronged or done something so bad, I should at least get my own, report typed up from scratch. Like I should be that special to where, if I'm abusing my kid to the extent where they should be taken by somebody, it seems like that's the kind of thing important enough to write down, not like, oh, let's get this big thick packet that we gave to the last guy for doing something and just slap a name over it. It's like, no, people don't wrong each other to that degree and frequency. It should be a unique enough offense to where you don't have to cookie cutter.
You would think.
Yeah.
It's so cookie cutter. They have durations of time in the preformed forms for the courtrooms. And that's how cookie cutter and
Right.
against it is. It's totally
Yeah.
against what they say it's supposed to be.
Well, yeah, they have like a whole efficiency algorithm to it. It's like if it's a young enough, offspring below, like I think 2 years or something, 2 years old, you have like 6 months to comply with everything they tell you. This is here in California anyway. You have 6 months to comply with everything that they throw on you. And then they still might not give them back, But if the child's older, you might have 18 months total. They have hearings scheduled every certain time, after 6 months, 12 months, whatever. But yeah, and that's another thing that you really don't grasp when they take them is knowing that even best case scenario, like you're not going to see them they're not going to be home again for like 6 months,
Yeah, like when they first take them, you're not going to see them for the first 30 days. From what I've heard from people say that once they get taken, it's 30 days before you get a chance to even see them.
Wow. Yeah. They're not supposed to do any of that, by the way. Any of
Yeah.
this.
I got visits right away, but still, yeah.
Algorithm. Before I forget, the algorithm. I discovered that I reviewed their algorithm, and actually the developer of their algorithm for seizing kids. More recently, I went over their factors, so even that's incorrect. But the algorithm itself was developed by the CCP. Just so you know.
I'm not doubting that at all.
Yeah, their people did the math and computer program for it. So, and of course, nobody reviews it, nobody looks at it or understands it half the time, or questions it. And it's crazy that nobody even looks at this stuff. So yeah, they just learned that not that long ago, maybe a year ago. And then more recently, I just discovered in one of these manuals, it's an odd-based system based on the prior year's seizure odds. So the higher, they're using past targets to seize new targets. So in other words, none of the factors that actually are about risk, none of them pertain to the odds of your child going home or you being or them being at risk of maltreatment. They determine it on race, gender, marital status, finances, and it says it all in their training manuals, and it's sick. It's an odds-based calculation. I can't remember the last word, but odds-based.
Yeah, and
is what it is.
That even kind of worse than that is it goes to show like that's how they take your kids. But even worse than that, I can tell you that the method in which they keep your kids or decide definitively that you're not getting them back is just as transparent, obvious, and disgusting. In their clear and convincing evidence, in my case, for example, and I think in most of them, it says based on age, race, and maybe gender, this child is of adoptable status or likelihood. And another factor is siblings in another home. So they're saying that their clear and convincing evidence as why you should not get your child back is because it's that much more appealing somewhere else. It has nothing to do, even in their conclusion, they don't say because you beat your kid or you're a bad parent or bad somebody. They don't even say based on the fact that they beat their kids, there's a chance they'll get beat again. No, they say, ooh, this is a shiny object that we can definitely sell off. So because it's such a desired, there's such a demand for this product, that's why we're going to have this supply. Like, we're not returning your kid because there's so many reasons to put it somewhere else. And it has nothing to do with what you did or were alleged to have done.
Correct. Actually, it said in the Welfare and Institutions Code after 300 somewhere, their likelihood to be adopted is actually the most weighted factor in their calculation whether or not they're going to seize your child and keep them.
Right. In fact, it talks about how they must return if there's nowhere to put the kid. Essentially, if you receive stolen property, a magistrate is more likely to take harder ruling on you than if you had stolen the property yourself. So if you're out there buying up stolen goods, people are going to keep stealing, and so if people are out there just happily taking from another, they're going to keep taking from moms and dads. My point is, people are being foster parents for the money. Not all of them, I'm saying, but by and large, that's why they're doing it. And so people are, and this is our society. It's not necessarily just the state. The state is just providing a service. They can get away with selling your kids to someone else because there's so many someone else's out there. So stop taking kids because you're part of it. If you're taking in a kid that's not yours, you're part of the reason they're taking the kids in the first place. If they see a market for it, they're going to do it.
And that's so true, that the part of it is because of these people wanting to foster these kids out for the money, because we do know that the majority of them only do it for that paycheck. Most of them.
Yep. I mean, and again, generalities. I'm not saying every foster parent ever was always a piece of shit. No, but you know what? It's like, if I want to boycott China, I got to stop buying Chinese products. Well, if you want the state to stop stealing kids, stop taking kids that are stolen, And I mean, if society at large exercises some morals in a large way that we're not going to accept this shit anymore, them taking people's kids, then they can't get away with it,
Hey,
And-
so, yeah, exactly. And a lot of actions can be taken that are outside the normal parameter of the basic rally, protest, or whatever we have done before. There's a lot of other extra steps you can do. So if anybody ever wants some tips of ways and things you can do, just let me know. Like brochures on the Mondays and Fridays to other families to let them know they're not alone. Chalk on their sidewalks so that they know they're traffickers. I leave them brochures, and actually I put bumper stickers on their cars that say, I sell your kids to feed mine. I do all kinds of stuff that is legal, but that does work to change everything in your environment. So lots of things you can do besides the norm to help this movement.
That's really
FYI.
awesome. I like the bumper sticker idea.
Yeah, because they
Thank
don't
you.
see that shit. They don't see it for a long time.
That's awesome.
I know, right? Isn't it great?
I know that. I mean, I got
I
lots
like that.
up my sleeve, lots. I mean, and you know, one of the best things to do is attack their ego because most of them are narcissists.
Of course.
So attack their ego in any way you can, like call them what they are, traffickers, coyote cars is what I wrote on the sidewalk one time. I just call them out, call them what they are. I put stuff like Halloween, I'll decorate with dead babies around their social services building. I mean, you name it. There's so much you can do that is legal. It has to be legal. Keep in mind, everybody, because otherwise you lose your voice if you break the law. Okay.
Those are some good ideas.
Get together and chip in for a billboard.
Yeah, I like that idea. There was a lady here in St. Louis that an older woman, I think she was fighting for her grandchildren. She ended up on her own getting a billboard and putting it up there like a year or so ago.
Yeah.
Hey, Johnny.
Yes,
go ahead.
billboards is good.
Go ahead, Mark. Finish your thought first.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say that kind of reminds me that you mentioned grandma. You know, another important thing that people in society don't realize at all is if they take your kids or your kids' kids or your brother or sister's kids, well, just know this too, that from the second they do that, you know, from day one to the end, grandparents, aunts and uncles, step parents, none of them have any standing in a family court. You have zero, you know, right to be a part of that case as anybody else. So you're 100% have no voice in the matter in their family court. So basically, you don't have any power to help get them back or to there's no standing, which means no relevance to it. You can't say, hey, look, I'm grandpa or grandma in this situation, and I see the kid after school every day. I help them do their homework. I'm there to make sure things don't go wrong, you know, or here's some examples of how they're not a bad parent, or they don't even listen. They don't take it into account because you might as well be a stranger from another country. You have the same status and standing as they do.
Actually,
So,
you have it worse than if you were from another country, unfortunately.
I have a comment to that with my personal case through kinship placement, that they used my my child, my adult child, to place my daughters with who is now trying to adopt my youngest daughter, and I am fighting for her currently. So they gave him that, you know, that power as long as he went along with the narrative. And now he's discovered that of all the monies that he's making from this. So, and so that's a little bit different. My spin's a little different on that.
But it's really not, because you know what? They forced him to go against his own family, and that is very
Right,
communist.
right. But the thing was, like, there was a first incident that they were removed, and then they promised him college. So he went and did college. Well, he moved, and then when they had an opportunity to they placed my daughters with him after they exhausted all the, you know, the foster care monies, you know, and they went ahead, and once that all ran out, they became licensed foster parents, and then the whole adoption subsidies, you know, started coming up. So, but yeah, you're right on that. But it you know, as long as you go along with their narrative, or the family members do, they're taking, and that's the good thing about, you know, I would rather my daughters be with family anyway, but definitely not under these circumstances. So, but yeah, they went ahead, and so now, you know, these therapists and all these things, and through these, you know, reunification therapy, convince these children that these good memories did not happen. That's what I'm battling with right now at the moment.
yeah.
And, you know, my son is older, and he's like, oh no, that never happened. That never happened. That never. No, you don't. No. And I'm like, wait a
Selective
second.
memory,
Yes.
selective memory,
Yes.
and narcissistic
And yes,
behavior.
yes, but what it was is there's another word for it where it's one of the therapy.
Alienation.
Well, that too, but there's a therapy. It's not it's like a cognitive something behavioral therapy where
Cognitive
they
dissonance, maybe behavioral
no
therapy.
it's
No,
it's CBT. It's CBT. It's
cognitive behavioral
cognitive
therapy.
behavioral
Gotcha.
therapy. And see what they do and what it is um I bring up these memories and stuff, and they've convinced my daughters that that never happened, and everything that has happened while they were away, they're convincing them that it happened with me, and they're starting. I
You're cutting out
mean,
a bit there, Jen. You want to go back like 5, 10 seconds and repeat that real quick?
okay, hang on. I'm gonna this stupid Bluetooth. I don't like to have my phone.
Yeah, it's definitely cutting in and out. You might want maybe we should that Bluetooth if it's not working that great. We can barely hear you, Jen.
Okay. 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 So, they've convinced, my daughters that none of these good memories have happened. All of the memories of any kind of abuse that they've sustained or, that they've suffered out of my care, they've made them believe that it was because of me, but they're not in my care. They've convinced them, and just different things that have happened, and just so it's like my son's got them, and my son is their brother. They're calling him dad. They're calling him dad. They know that that's not their father.
Right.
They know that who I am. It's not like I died in a crash. I have a relationship with all of them. But could you imagine that? I mean, to all of a sudden call your brother dad. I mean, and it's like, and this is, part of the family of origins here. But how fucked up is that? Oh, it's my foster brother dad. And the way that the court set up after Child Protective Services exited was the way it was set up was perverse. Like me and my son were in a marriage and a relationship together.
They tried to paint it like that. Oh, that's sick.
Well, yeah, I mean, because if you think about it, the way they're still using the paternity, they're using paternity instead of taking. And so when they had my son go and apply for child support, okay, against me, they use that case so that way they can get it 5, 6 times, because that's what they do. I can't go too much more into it. Probably said a little too much, but not really, not necessarily. So now I go, just one more thing. I went to my daughter's birthday and party, and it was at a church, and I made a little video for her, and they also made a video, and God, the things on the video was so disturbing that my little 2-minute video of the good memories would have brought it back. They didn't play mine. They played, oh, well, can't wait to see you in Texas.
That's so fucked up for them to do that. It's so screwy.
And and it's like trying to convince them of various abuses that I let happen. They're like, well, we didn't want to tell you, Mom. Why? Because you were afraid that I was going to do something to them. because you know darn well, and but making it like I allowed it, and it's just so my perception is that but then again, you know, the guardian ad litem was a character witness for my son. He's not there. She was not supposed to do that. That was supposed to be for the children that are under the state care, not for my son's character witness. Because I filed the motion not for them not to travel to Missouri because of my various reasons. And they said, and the guardian ad litem stood up and said, he's not going to let any abuse happen. It's like, just because it happened so many years ago, it doesn't going to happen again. This young man will not let anybody abuse his sisters. And, you know, and it's like, you know, to place them with a family member is great, but no one family member is completely trying to erase their mother.
Yeah.
And one thing that I'll stop so somebody else can continue is this. During the adoption trial, my pretender, whatever, and the adoption didn't get granted as well. Just anyways, my attorney, he goes, and if the judge does, you know, go ahead and, you know, approve this adoption, she'll be the mother of you, your sister, and your brother still. And he says, by birth, you know, and it's just and I'm like, you know what, you mother, and I'm like, you know, nah, okay, cool. And I said, by birth, huh? Yeah, I remember that. But, you know, and it's like just the look, you know, and I just said, you know what? I said, you're an adult. You can make those decisions to hate me, but you know what? Your sisters are still there. You know, at the time, both of them were under 18. It's my duty to protect them. And there's some abuse that I'm not going to get into at the moment, but you know, and it's like they want me to do this therapy, and it's hell. It's hell because many reasons, gaslighting by the therapist, and my youngest son passed away, and oh my gosh, it was a therapy session from hell for that one. But anyway, I won't go too much into it because but it is, you know, and I figured out how much money that they were making for my daughters. And, you know, my youngest daughter never needed any mental health services. She has to see a behavioral clinician because to manage her behavior, because she's so upset and so traumatized. But it's because they blame me. I'm like,
yeah, they have a popular method that way.
Yes.
They rip kids out of their home away from the ones they love and don't want to be apart from, and then they make all of them be evaluated and seek behavioral therapy because they're all of a sudden acting out.
Right. And you know, that those actions that these children, and that even that's normal. It's absolutely normal for children to behave like that after being ripped away from their parents. It's normal. And you know, I put together
it's a false narrative too
about it. Well, exactly, but
they say
then
acting out
do this
is
thing, and then
crying at night, you know.
Yeah.
And also, right. You know, foster parents and adoptive parents, if that's the case, anybody that receives the child is in a position where they're all of a sudden financially incentivized, as well as the state that's, you know, using them to put your kids in a therapy. If every condition that they diagnose them with, or just slap on them, if they need medication or not, all of that brings in more funding.
Yeah.
So they need to value up your kid.
Yes, it goes up another bracket, you know, a disability bracket. And you know, I looked.
Oh, go ahead, Jen. Finish your thought. I want to just touch base on something that me and Andy are planning to make. Go ahead.
Okay, he just triggered another point I wanted to make as well. You know, she's involved in several camps, right? This said for 4 days. Okay, 4 days, $515. Now, if somebody's household increased by 4, how can they afford all of these extravagant camps? I mean, we're not talking just one camp. We're talking camp after camp after camp. In this one particular retreat, $515 for 4 days. And it's like, you know, so they're getting all of this money, you know, for, you know, a day. And my oldest daughter is disabled, you know, is probably so
You're cutting in and out really bad. It's like the speed is slowing down and speeding up and slowing down.
That's really
Go-
weird. I'm not
Go back
doing
10
anything. I
seconds
don't
and
have
repeat
my
what you said so
Bluetooth.
we can hear you because it was cutting out pretty bad there for a second.
Okay. I don't think they don't want us to hear.
Well, try it again, just bite them.
Okay, I looked up to see how much per day. They were getting $66 a day. And my oldest daughter, she went to college for a little while, but she came back. And from what I hear here in Indiana, if they go to college and they don't complete it, they're stuck with student debt. And so, because that's what they incentivize the kids, you know, oh yeah, you know, you get a degree and all stuff. So there'll be a bunch of educated psychopaths in the system. So so right now, as it stands, there's nothing in it's like my son and I were a couple. That's the way courts have it. That's how it looks. You know, you look at it.
You're cutting in and out real bad again, Jen. Maybe
Okay.
I don't know if it's your internet connection, but you're cutting. It's like we got a good 20-30 seconds of you talking, and then it started cutting out again.
My Bluetooth is like right here. I'm talking normal, so I don't.
It's probably your internet. I'm thinking it's cutting in and out a little spotty. It's okay. Go ahead, try and just continue. Do the best you can with it.
So I guess you know what I'm trying to say is that baking racing is meant to be beautiful. That's meant to, you know, help out. But my question is, how much of the resources that they get actually they use things?
Well, that's all reason why they do what they do. You know, and they expound on it every year.
Jen, you want to mute yourself? We're getting feedback.
Yeah, they have to account for why they need their funding every fiscal year. October 1st is the federal fiscal year beginning. So if they want to, you know, exist, which obviously there's a lot of people that professionally depend on this racket, you know, that's why it's a trafficking cartel. You know, it's not one guy making a profit off another guy. It's you have therapists, you have social workers, you have police, sheriff, you know, you have countless people that have an entire profession contracted to this nightmare, you know, and that's their incentive to not go down, you know. And every year, I don't know if people realize this, but every year the government has to submit reports as to why they need funding for next year, to pay their people, to be open, to exist. And they don't lay people off. You know, they might replace you if you're bad and you get fired, but they don't reduce in number. So next year they have to show why they spent so much money that year or needed so much money and why they need it again this year plus some, you know.
Right.
So guaranteed
Yeah.
next year, they're going to have 1 or 2 more social workers in your area, or
Yeah.
they're going to have a little bit more money to do what they do. And they're going to take a few more kids than they took last year.
Right. And I think they even like wheel and deal and stuff trying to make the amount of funding, you know, like they will they will have like 6 prosecuting attorneys, you know, during.
Desiree, is that you, or is the feedback coming through, or is it somebody else? Maybe try muting your mic.
I'll mute it, but I do have a comment about that too after she's done.
If you can, whenever you want to speak, just feel free to unmute yourself, but go ahead and mute it when you're not, so that way they don't have any interference.
Go ahead, Desiree, I'm done, hun.
Okay, yes, that was a huge issue, the whole financing for the next fiscal year and whatnot. See, they base their financial records on a corporate model. And as a social entity or a government entity, they should not be based on that. What that means is, as a corporate model, you have to increase your percentage profitability annually. Otherwise, the CEO always loses their job. Okay, that's just basic business. And the only way to decrease your expenses and increase your profit is to either grow inventory or decrease your employee expense. So therefore, they have been on a corporate model, which is incorrect. And they need to, or at least in the interim, because they will be shut down eventually anyways. But in the interim, they have to inverse this. So basically, and they know that. Social workers aren't going to stop having jobs as soon as we stop doing the child protective services, because they have so many kids to reunite with actual families, you know. But yeah, the corporate model, basing these government entities that are supposed to serve people, not money and themselves, is an issue. And I think they need to offer bonuses or travel entertainment expenses or whatever with the money saved, like any other company would do, profit sharing and whatnot. If they inverse and have the proper incentivize the goal, you know what I mean? That is basically what they need to do instead of incentivizing the adverse goal. And it may work for the interim and help with the whole budget thing, but yeah, corporate model won't work in social services.
Well, I hate to break it, but that's how the entire government is structured, even in the military, you know.
It is. I think that's where this problem stems from, actually, in my opinion. Go ahead.
Well, it is a corporation. That's why they do it that way, you know. And in the military, same thing. You know, I used to handle munitions. I used to build the bombs. Anything that went bang or boom, I handled it. And it's just like, it was more like a bank is what it was. You know, each squadron had an account and they had an allocation for the year. And at the end of the year, they couldn't have anything left over, or they didn't get it next year, you know? So if you get $1 million for the year worth of explosives or rounds to fire, and you have one left over, then you don't get $1 million next year.
And that is not what
I have a question. What branch of military were you in?
I was in the Air Force and the Army, and then I worked for the Navy.
Oh, okay.
After.
My dad was in the military for 20 years, so he retired with honors. I was just curious
Okay.
about how that works. So, all
Yeah,
right.
so real corporations don't do that. They don't try and show that they've used all their money to their bosses, you know. I mean, that's ridiculous. What they try and do is show that they saved money. Are you guys there, or did I lose it?
No, we're here. We can hear you.
Okay. Who, I thought I lost you again. Yeah, like when I was at Enterprise as a manager, every month we got paid on the money that we saved. You know, the increase in profit meant the money we saved versus the prior year manager, we got paid off of that. So saving money at the long run was the way to make money. I don't know where they got, you gotta, you know, puff your budget up to get it. It's just ridiculous. I don't know where they came up with that.
Yeah, well, and even worse than that, in order to do so, if they didn't expend enough of their munitions, you know, I mean, I've literally buried rounds in a lake before, thrown them in a lake. I've seen people bury stuff in the ground and make it disappear. It was like, smoke them if you got them, you know, don't be stuck with them at the end, you know. And I mean, I've seen a lot of just egregious shit.
Well, it's unintelligent, and just know that we are working towards a more intelligent species as a whole, and technology is helping because everybody gets to see the truth. No matter how much they lie about it, we're seeing it. We can see it with our own eyes on
Right.
TV.
The truth always comes out. No matter how hard you try to hide it, the truth will always eventually come out.
And we are connecting, all of us, and we all are pretty much similar in our desires and hopes and dreams. We all love. Love is the only answer, unless you're a psychotic CPS worker. But we all do share so much in common, and we all have the basic American beliefs. And I truly believe we are fixing it the proper way, the best way we can, without destroying it all. So it is a little bit slow,
Yeah,
Well,
no, it is taking a lot longer than most of us would prefer, definitely. But I mean, and I'd like to point out to our views, for anybody that doubts that we're making progress, those of us that are speaking out on these issues, I know whereas the mainstream media isn't. Just look at what happened to the Georgia Guidestones the other day. If that doesn't send a loud and clear message that the vast majority of us are awake and not having any part of the NWO's agenda, I don't know what does. So.
Oh, so much progress, so much. The 3 new Supreme Court rulings are absolutely in our favor.
Yes.
So much is in our favor. DHS, luckily, Mayorkas is on our side now after those conferences with the Congress. It killed him to be called a traitor, and he's on board now. So yeah,
it took long enough, didn't it?
Well, shit, he's being told by his boss one thing, and then he knows his job is the other thing, and he's been
Right.
serving. He's a good guy, but Becerra's not a good
Conflict
guy.
of interest. Can you say conflict of interest? That's a perfect example for our viewers of what a conflict of interest is like.
I know, and I felt so bad for him because he's not a traitor. He's really trying, and Biden's such an asshole. Truly,
Right,
I think he's at the end of his life, and he knows that he's starting to be
I mean,
honest.
look at his memory, for Christ's sake. It's pretty bad.
Yes, it is. And he's still under the control of the administrative branches. Unfortunately, you could tell by what he's saying right now about Roe. Otherwise, he wouldn't be.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
But we are.
It don't make any sense what's coming out of his mouth. He's contradicting himself at every turn pretty much. You see the tweet he made about asking the pump stations to lower the gas prices? Like, get the fuck out of here, motherfucker. You're the one that caused this shit.
He's so he's trying to blame everybody, but you know what? It was inevitable. Actually, I think we put him there because we knew this was going to happen anyways, and he's a bad guy. So
we did. Well, with your connections to what you're talking about Q and
Come
stuff,
on,
I know
man.
you're right
Come
on that.
Yeah,
Come on, man.
It definitely looks like a white hat operation, all this playing out to expose them, basically, if you ask me.
You guys, it is. The plan to save the world is true. Hillary could not win. She did, but she could not because our world would not be here anymore. That's simple. We've known since 97.
I'd heard that she had wanted to start a nuclear war if she had done it up. That was her plan. Wasn't that was that true?
I don't know. I only know what I saw. I don't know any of the details of, this world's actual facts. I just know what I know. And I do know female could not win that year. So they put Trump in, of course. But they now put Biden in because he's a bad guy. He is a pedo. And I think he's coming to terms with him being a bad guy. When you get old as a man, you start feeling more emotions hormonally, and he's starting to repent, I think. And start to tell the truth a little bit. Unfortunately to Russia, though.
Right. That was a good one. That was clever. No,
it's so sad. He keeps getting everybody in trouble.
I know.
I do know too much.
Well, you know what? That can be a good thing, but it's a double-edged sword, though, Desiree. Is it not? I mean, like I'm very highly intelligent myself, not to brag or toot my own horn, but I'm in the IT field by trade. That's my main field of expertise. I've been in it since '98. This is really just my passion project, this whole News for Us thing. So it's like, it was kind of my attempt to kind of like bring it back to the people. But yeah, no, being, as intelligent and, like, that's not easy. It's a double-edged sword. Like, I walk the line of genius and insanity every day. And if you don't stay grounded and don't stay in touch with or you're one foot in reality, you're going to lose your way. And it's not easy. It's like there's a fine line between genius and insanity, and that's very true.
If there's a line at all.
Huh?
If there's a line at all.
If there's a line at all, right, and that's not always I don't guarantee. There sometimes there is no line.
And I think truly to fight what we're fighting right now, there has to be a little bit of insanity, because the normal
Right.
person would break. If you couldn't absorb and see what they're doing outside the box, because it doesn't make sense, it is insanity. And it takes insanity to fight them back.
Right.
And keep a
So-
level head, stuff like that. And have a
Right,
home,
right.
you know,
So-
to have the kids come home too.
One of the
It's-
projects that we had, had some throwing around some ideas for, and Angie, you remember that project, the syntax thing with the law, and we were watching all those videos on proper legalese and how they format the names and all that. Do you remember what I was talking about?
I do.
Quantum grammar?
What was it
Yeah.
called again?
Quantum grammar?
Yes,
Something
that's
like
it.
that, yeah.
Correct. So, being a software engineer, which is my field of expertise, we are going to be putting together a program based on that on quantum syntax grammar, how that works, and because basically, isn't it correct that they say the mathematical algorithm would apply for any language? Is that not correct, Desiree, from what you heard? Okay, so based on that premise, we, if this is accurate, like where we're seeing it seems to be, we're going to write a program that will automate the legalized paperwork process for all of these victims that are having to go through
Absolutely.
file on their own behalf. And that's kind of what I wanted to enlist your help on, Jonathan. What I talked about earlier when I messaged you in the chat. So.
That is so exciting. I didn't see the message. I apologize.
Well, I just sent it to Jonathan, directly, but I wanted to touch base on it before the end of the show, so he knew what I was talking about.
You know about it. Okay, so yeah, a lot of what we're doing right now is testing the system and going through the books, and we will be putting up. I mean, it never will be official.
You guys are working on your own?
It'll never be official, but the quantum grammar is correct in its
Okay.
format. So if you want to get ahead, go ahead and follow their format is correct. I don't do detail. I'm not a micromanager, more of a macro type of processor. So
Right.
I do know that's the route to take as far as redoing the books for the algorithm. And it will be a lot less biased, by the way, a lot less.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, no. So that's the answer. I was hoping to hear that the syntax on is correct, because if it is, the math, theoretically, the mathematical model should play out for any language.
Absolutely.
Because it's because what they're describing in that is a base mathematical model which represents the algorithm at the base level of the root. It's based off of, I think, the root sounds and language, which is why it's able to, because it's kind of hard to really go into and explain to your average everyday layman's person, because being a technical person, I go off and start speaking Japanese, as far as everybody else is concerned, but
Right.
I just be talking tech or code talk. But anyways, you know what I'm
Okay.
talking about, Desiree.
We need to decide if we want to be a baseline of null or one. Okay, so
Right.
null is communism and one is us.
Yes.
So decide if you want to be or not. Okay.
I go for one, all for one and one for all.
There you go. And you know what? The baseline of 0 is very boring, and it never evolves, progresses, or anything, and it has non-existence. And that's
Right.
what separating each other into labels and classes does. And freedom gets you your anomaly, and that's the only thing that saves us in the future. Okay.
Hey, Desiree, I'm gonna message you my contact info so we can stay in touch. I definitely want you to. I would love for you to be on my News for Us Fringe Division podcast, as well as
For
tips, techniques, and
sure.
survival traits, because you sound like you could provide a lot of valuable insight. And you too, Jen. I want you both on at the same time. For that.
Yeah, and hey, I can pass it along. I've got
Yeah, that would be great. That would be
all
great.
that. I told her about the new Fringe division. She's like, cool. So I'm like, I think it's right up our alley. So
Perfect.
awesome.
Cool.
Julio, yeah, so.
Well, we've been
yeah.
on, we had a good solid 2 hour show. You did a really
Yeah.
great job hosting, Dottie. So I'm really impressed. You did really good. And I mean, that's all, like, just be natural, pretend like we're just talking on a regular Zoom meeting. That's all you really gotta do to get it done. So I just want to give you props for doing such a great job hosting, Angie.
Thank you.
And thank you
Good
guys
job,
for listening.
Dottie, girl.
Appreciate it. It's hard to hear everything, and thank you.
Thank you, Desiree, for coming on. You too, Jonathan and Monarch.
One
Thank
last thing
you.
before we end. Does I know Tamsin wanted to give some updates on her case
Oh,
briefly.
yeah,
I forgot about that.
Dropped her live, so.
Yeah, you said you wanted, to hear. an
Yeah,
update.
I did. I totally had space. We had, because Angie was doing this show, so I didn't know what she had already had planned. So I didn't know if we were going to do this or next. But it looks like we'll get you in tonight.
Okay, I didn't know what you wanted, but yeah.
I just want you to give our viewers updates on what happened with what they're trying to do now about saying that they're trying to go against the family reunification. Was it?
Yeah, the children's lawyer has, of course, objected to the trial reunification, which within itself is a pile of horseshit. I mean, trial reunification within itself is a pile of horseshit because, well, that's just a monitored return. Why should we be monitored when we have proven that we have committed no crime against our children? So that aside, though, when you look at the picture of them coming home at all, the children's attorney has something against that. I mean, just them coming home at all, whether trial reunification or whatever. So, and from what I understand, it's because our younger son told the attorney that the foster parents had better stuff than us. And that's really
Okay.
all it's
So tell our viewers, for those who don't know or who haven't heard your story before, last time what was it, with that one video where Timothy was over, and it sounded like he was talking about, oh, better get a lawyer or something like that, and it sounded like he had heard what the lawyer was saying or what the foster parents might have been saying and
yeah.
repeating it back, and then how they tried to flip that around on you guys, when in reality, what was it, the child's lawyer, who's not supposed to be talking to the kids, like on legal front, was talking to them apparently more than they're supposed to. You guys found out, was it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we found out that we were under the impression that he had only talked to her once. And then it turns out that he's been talking to her more than that. And so he has been saying things like, well, they had, like I said, they had better stuff than us, bigger house and all that. So he likes it better over there.
You know what you call that, folks, when you have that kind of a situation, especially when it comes to a kid? Coercion and conflict of interest.
Yes. I also call it grooming, indoctrination, coaching.
That too, yeah.
Social engineering. Yeah. So that's what's going on, and it keeps going, I believe. And we tried to get through to him different ways, and it seems to be working somewhat, and yet they just keep, yeah, but DHS tries to play the hero. They act like there's no safety concerns and all that. It's just the children's lawyer. It's just a dog and pony show. We know what's going on. They're the ones that paved the way for this. No one listened when he said he was wanting to come home all that time. Then all of a sudden they begin listening to him.
Right. It just doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't add up.
It does.
It does. Right.
I mean, they were.
Well, no, it does, but I mean, as far as what they're claiming, it doesn't. Their claim doesn't add up because of what you're seeing with what we just talked about, is what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've had another video since then that we made as a family, and he was acting a little better. I don't know if you saw that or not, but
Send me the link after the show. I have not seen it yet.
oh, okay. Yeah, he's acting a little better. We had, oh yeah, it was for Father's Day and his birthday, because they were around the same time. So he was acting a little better. We had a talk with him right before that. Not sure I should go into detail, but it just seemed a little better. And so sometimes he acts better now, but I don't know. I'm still just kind of worried. Oh yeah, and they extended the court date about the objection. I mean, the trial reunification is still going, but the objection, because of the objection, there has to be a court date. And they extend that to close to the end of July. So we just get our full weekend visits, and they're not home where they should be. And every moment apart from them, irreparable damage. It's irreparable damage.
I know you wanted to talk to Jonathan because you had a couple questions that for maybe some pointers on your legal paperwork. What if you was a question you could ask him above all else? What would you ask him as far as for advice for what you need help with? For your stuff?
Of course, the lawyers don't do anything, and I just wanted to be prepared before I went on my own, and so I need something effective because everything is in our favor. It's just a child trafficking cartel. Same with the criminal case.
Why do you touch briefly touch briefly on what some of the documents you have already put together, or what you're thinking about putting together for your case, and then see if that would be
some writs and some motions, at least maybe something more than that, but at least those.
Well, tell Jonathan what you got so far, so he can get a baseline of what direction to point you in.
Okay, I can. I was looking into specifically, I was looking into writ of quo warranto, writ of prohibition, just stuff like that, and some motions, of course, just something that will work.
Okay, so Jonathan, what in your opinion and your expertise, what would be the best approach for her to take her case? You got your family court case, and then you got your criminal case where they're trying to persecute you. So how would she go about getting that into a federal forum to get justice? What would be your advice on that, Jonathan?
I couldn't really give any advice because I don't know anything about the case.
Well, would you be open to doing a meeting one time, like with me, and maybe one of these days in the near future to kind of help see what direction we can take, or what approach we can take to help some of these victims? And this would apply to not only Tamsin, but of course any other family court victims too as well. Go ahead, Desiree.
You can always file a preliminary injunction with the federal court. Follow the ACLU, Mrs. L versus ICE. Okay, and you can also always do a habeas corpus to your Supreme Court and do a file for stay. That'll stop everything. File for stay in each of the other courts.
Repeat that one more time for our viewers. I'm going to write this down.
Okay. Follow the ACLU, Mrs. L versus ICE. And I actually have a great template for something more similar to our situation on my page. So you're going to follow the ACLU preliminary injunction with the federal court. And then you could also do a habeas corpus to your state Supreme Court and file for stay with your criminal and your family court. Okay. That'll stop all procedure judgments in the interim of that habeas corpus. That'll give you some time, but you usually don't win, but it'll give you time. And then the preliminary injunction, Mrs. L versus ICE, is one of the best arguments I've found.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for your advice and input, Desiree. I know Tamsin really appreciates it, and I know all the victims do. And
wait a minute. Did you say injunction in the federal court?
Yeah, preliminary injunction to stop.
Okay, don't you have to have your case over there? I tried to move my case over there. The family court case.
Just copy the versus ICE thing, because your kid's in detainment. They're doing the exact same thing as they did to the kids of the border. Okay, to our kids. Mm-hmm. Okay, they seized them, and they have a great argument on there. Oh shoot, there goes my phone again. Right. Sorry. Anyways, it has a lot of good argument you could copy. Once we communicate later, I'll share my group page what has it, the more translatable to our court situations.
Okay.
Okay. But basically cut and paste like these motherfuckers. Excuse my French, but just do it.
Yeah, but that's what they're doing. Yeah, you've seen the templates, right? The cookie cutter templates they have in some of these fraudulent fucking racketeering courts they got going on. I know, I've seen them.
Yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're cookie cutter. How do you copy and paste?
The winners. Cut and paste the winners. And that's one of them.
Are you on Signal, Desiree, at all? No. Okay. I just was wondering what would be the best method to communicate with you, because we usually all of us on the team communicate via Signal groups and stuff, and try to do it as securely as possible when able. Whatever works best for you.
I'll get on Signal. I won't do Telegram. I'll do Signal.
Okay, cool. We're also on Telegram as well, so you can. I'll send you the links for all that, or have Jen forward them to you.
long story about Telegram. I can't do Telegram. Has to do with
Oh, okay, gotcha.
robotics. Yeah, Hanson and Singularity people. I won't.
Okay, I
know
see where you're going with that.
I
Yeah.
had to cut mine off, my Telegram. I had to cut that off because I had to save some storage on my phone.
Yeah, they're not the best people. So
No, not necessarily. And there's also a 0-day hack or vulnerability that was found in Telegram recently, wasn't there?
I don't know. I just know who built the site.
Oh, you know who built the platform? Okay, gotcha. So you know who's behind it, but they're
I was
tenants.
at their launch, their token launch, way back when Sophia, the robot, came out and did the Saudi stuff.
Oh,
and all
really?
That. Yeah, I was part of
Oh,
all
wow.
that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
So yeah, they owe me money in my. Even though I guess the token's only worth like 8 cents, so I guess I shouldn't complain. But yeah.
Well, it just has to do with principle and how they do business. I wouldn't want to fuck with somebody who does business like that, shady like that either, you know?
Very shady.
Not how I roll.
Shady, and a lot of us were fooled by them. So
Gotcha.
yeah, and they're on Telegram trafficking, or at least I think they were. I have some pictures I could share later.
Sounds good. And, all right, is there anything else we wanted to touch on, Dottie, before we wrap up the show?
I don't think so.
We had a great show tonight, you guys. Thank you for everybody for jumping on. It was really, really good. Remember how to end the live, Dottie?
Maybe.
I just don't forget end it on the Facebook and then on the Rumble. That's all you should have to do. And then you can go ahead and exit out or end the live on the Zoom, and we should be all set that way.
Ended on Rumble.
Rumble and Facebook, yeah. Just click end live on Facebook and on Rumble.
And if you're out there fighting CPS, you're not alone, okay? And there are people out here fighting for you.